Dear colleagues, we are pleased to welcome you to our online event today. We are going to discuss the lessons for energy resilience that can already be learned after 4 years of constant Russian attacks on energy infrastructure. We are not the first to make such list of lessons. Before us, similar lists were already created by EU Electric and the International Energy Agency. But our list is a little longer, so I hope everyone will find something new and useful among our recommendations. We have been moving rather slowly in developing the lessons learned, as the situation in Ukraine is constantly changing. The specifics of the Russian attacks in 2022 was different from the attacks last year and this year. After 4 years of constant destruction, the generation capacity has changed. The reaction of people and companies to the energy situation has also changed. And I would say that everyone has learned how to build energy resilience at their own level. That is true. There is immense fatigue from war, but there is also an important experience that other countries should learn, because we all see that the world is far from peaceful today. We are glad that today, in addition to our presentation, we will have wonderful speakers who will definitely be able to comment very professionally on the recommendations and correct them and add their own suggestions. First of all, International Energy Agency, Talia Vatman and Jacques Varichet, who work a lot on Ukraine and have also developed recommendations for other countries. Also, our dear friend and former European Commissioner for Energy, Andris Piebalgs, who knows very well what the energy war is with Russia since gas wars in 2009. And of course, Dmytro Sakharuk, CEO, D-Trading, D-Tech, and this is a person who not only knows the situation, but also knows what to do, how to react to different situations, and his recommendations for others will be first-hand recommendations. I would also like to remind you that our event is provided with simultaneous translation. Participants can choose a channel convenient for them by clicking on the globe icon on the Zoom panel. Please note that the event is being recorded. Also, today we will publish all the materials and send them to the registered participants, and my colleagues will also send the link to the published publication to the chat. And finally, I would like to thank the donor who supported our initiative, the International Renaissance Foundation. Let me give the floor to Dmytro Shulga, Director of the Europe and World Program, for a short introductory speech. Dmytro, over to you.
Thank you very much, Elena. Yes, congratulations, spring has come. So it's time to reflect on the last winter and prepare for the next one. It's really great pleasure for me to say some welcoming words from our side. DiXi Group is really very known think tank, and the work which it is doing is really remarkable. I think Ukrainian experience, well, first of all, of course, it's a matter of importance and interest for Ukrainian audience, these analytical reflections and conclusions and recommendations, but also, of course, for the donors, to whom we are very grateful, because without donors, without external help of our friends, Ukraine will not be able to survive through this winter. But also for the sake of learning from Ukrainian experience, because, of course, it's always better to learn from someone's experience than through your own mistakes and experience. Well, any experience is not perfect. But I would like only to stress here that we are talking about the threat and damage which we are going through and defending against. But again and again, not to forget that this basically is totally criminal way of doing. Well, any war of choice is a criminal thing. Any aggressive war is a criminal thing. But especially such way of doing this war as Russians do. Basically, this is a precedent when they are not able to break the front line, when they are not able to break the soldier's spirit and mastership. They're trying to break the civilians. They try to break this civilian infrastructure and basic stuff, basic environment for living in Ukrainian cities and towns. This was basically their primary aim of attack this winter, and this is, well, you can say it is genocidal way of doing things, but definitely this is a way of threatening. So it's a precedent when some country, aggressive country, can threaten not even directly military against military threats, but military against civilians, military against civilian infrastructure, and basically try to break the nation and to subdue its the nation to its own will. So this is definitely something unacceptable. This is definitely something of great interest for Europe, first of all, but also other places in the world. And hopefully we will all make our best conclusions from this experience. Thank you, and very much interested to follow the experts' discussion.
Many thanks, Dmitro. With this, let me pass the floor immediately to Olena Lopenko, our General Manager for Security and Resilience in DiXi Group, who will actually present our report, Holding the Grid, Ukraine's Energy Resilience Playbook. Olena, over to you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your interest in our event and our work. I will start with the point that Ukraine's energy system is still running. After 4 years of sustained attacks, the lights are still on. That is not an accident. That is the result of thousands of decisions made after impossible conditions by engineers, operators, regulators, and repair crews working under extraordinary pressure. This playbook documents what they learned. Next slide, please. Next slide. The crises that shaped global energy resilience thinking were bounded events. For example, Texas in February 2021, weather shock, brutal but brief. The European gas crisis of 2021-2022, a market stress that left physical infrastructure intact. California wildfires managed through controlled outages, recovery measured in days. Even Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, devastating grid collapse, but one where reconstruction could begin once the storm passed. So Ukraine's situation is structurally different. This is not a bounded event followed by recovery. This is a system being destroyed and rebuilt simultaneously under continued attack. Assets that are repaired get struck again. Russia is learning and adapting, and so is the system responding to it. Every phase brought something new. For example, phase 1 that started directly after the full-scale invasion, fuel logistics and occupation of several large power plants, and phase 6 where we are now, a wind combined campaign, heating electricity, gas, and district heating simultaneously. What we see is that the operational logic shifted from strike and capacity deficit to strike and critical urban impact. Kiev this winter is the clearest illustration, with 35 to 45% of electricity deficit, hundreds of thousands consumers without power after a single attack, pipes freezing and bursting in apartment buildings. It's a physical damage that could not be reversed simply by restoring power supply. So next slide. It is against this backdrop that the 11 principles of this playbook were developed, not in theory, but in response to real operational failures and hard-won adaptations. Yeah, and on the next slide, we will present the first and most fundamental lesson concerns system architecture. Systems built around large centralized plants and long transmission corridors create a small number of high-impact nodes. Striking those nodes produces system-wide disruption. The response is not to abandon large-scale generation, but to complement it with distributed capacity close to critical consumers, and also to introduce regional adequacy as a planning metric, measuring whether a region can sustain supply if its transmission corridors are cut. So next slide, and the next principle concerns what actually maintains system stability in real time. It is not baseload capacity, it's flexible generation. Fast responding resources that cover peaks, maintain frequency, and allow operators to manage emergency configurations. In Ukraine's case, much of it is tied to cogeneration plants, meaning a single strike simultaneously undermines electrical balancing capacity and urban heat supply. The strategic objective of attacking flexible generation is not merely to reduce capacity, it is to undermine operational control. Next lesson, next slide, please, concerns the grid itself. In multiple attack episodes, it was grid assets, substations, transmission lines, distribution nodes, node generation that became the main constraint on supply. High installed capacity provides no resilience benefit if the grid cannot deliver power or reroute flows around damaged sections. Redundancy, segmentation, and fast deployable restoration solutions are the operational foundation of grid resilience. This is particularly relevant for nuclear generation. Ukraine's nuclear plants reduced output repeatedly, not because of direct strikes, but because of damage to the surrounding grid. Next slide, and the fourth lesson concerns cities specifically. Under sustained attack, urban energy systems do not simply lose capacity. They shift into a mode of systemic degradation, where the defining dynamic is the chain of consequences that disruption triggers across interconnected infrastructure. Electricity disrupts heating, heating disruption damaged pipes cannot be repaired by just restoring power supply alone. And winter compresses the time window between a manageable deficit and irreversible physical damage. This is a qualitatively different risk that sector by sector resilience frameworks do not capture. The map on this slide, published by Ukrainian media, illustrates the scale. A single strike on the Kiev's cogeneration plants left over 1,000 residential buildings without heating. And next point is about interconnection. Employee synchronization was a strategic asset. We are observing a steady growth in import capacity, which in January 2026 already reached almost 2.5 gigawatts. And the EU's interconnectivity policy points in the right direction, and Ukraine's experience provides direct empirical validation. The critical lesson, however, is that the value of interconnection depends entirely on constraints that must be explicitly managed. Transfer limits, the number of entry points, internal corridor capacity, and system controllability under stressed conditions. Cross-border integration is not an unlimited substitute for domestic resilience. Both must be built in parallel. Next slide is about standardization. Recovery speed depends also on standardization, not on funding volume alone. The availability of standardized repair packages, prepositioned warehouse hubs, and plug-and-play solutions consistently proved more decisive than the scale of financial assistance. unified specification of critical components reduces restoration time from weeks to days and makes international assistance deployable at scale without compatibility delays. Next slide and the next lesson concerns protection. The principle is straightforward, but required time to embed systematically. Facilities degrade faster than they can be restored when protection is absent. Air defense reduces the probability of damage. Physical engineering protection reduces consequences when strikes penetrate. Cyber protection preserves operational control. And all three these components must be integrated into modernization programs from the outset as a standard cost of investment, not an optional supplement. Next slide and next lesson concerns supply chains. Next slide. The war exposed the fragility of supply systems built around centralized storage from the very first days of the invasion. Ukraine's rapid pivot to import-based supply stabilized market, but also revealed the absence of minimum stock frameworks that would have provided an earlier buffer. For natural gas, formalized prioritization through public service obligation regimes and protected consumer categories provided a more structured response. The key lesson is that distributed fuel storage, clear prioritization rules, and maintained import capacity are structural requirements, not crisis mode improvisations. Next slide is about communication. We see that effective crisis communication is an operational function of the energy system, not a public information task. It shapes demand behavior, reduces peak loads, and directly affects system balance during shortage periods. The most destabilizing factor for public trust was not the fact of outages, it was the gap between what consumers expected and what actually happened. Russian information actors deliberately exploited that gap to trigger panic and destabilizing consumer behavior. Counter disinformation is therefore not a media relation challenge, it is a grid stability challenge also. Beyond institutional communication, community preparedness proved to be an operational resilience asset in its own right. Ukraine's points of invincibility, centered with autonomous power and connectivity deployed across cities, reduced cascading humanitarian impacts and helped stabilize demand behavior during the most difficult periods. The next principle is industrial adaptation. Many energy-intensive enterprises in Ukraine shifted from compensating for outages to actively managing their consumption, like rescheduling loads, moving toward on-site generation, and microgrid configuration. This transformation converts industry from a passive actor into an active participant in system balancing. Regulatory frameworks have a direct role here, providing incentives and conditions that make this shift economically viable, including simplified permitting for self-generation and protection from disconnection for enterprises that generate a significant share of their own consumption. And the last point here, next slide, is about regulation. Wartime experience demonstrates that two parallel tracks must run simultaneously: accelerated permitting, simplified procurement, and emergency contracting accelerate recovery. Price caps and liquidity support preserve the financial viability of market players. and generators and suppliers on whom recovery depends. Neither track is sufficient without the other. Procedural speed without financial stability does not produce reliable supply. Financial stability without procedural flexibility does not produce timely restoration. The balance between containing price shocks and preserving market liquidity requires continuous recalibration. It is not like one-time policy decision. So this 11th principle, we can switch to the next slide, together form what Ukraine has learned. But before concluding, it is important to be transparent about the nature and limitation of this work. This playbook is a foundation, not a final conclusion. Some findings rest on evidence that is partial or difficult to verify externally, because wartime conditions made systematic data collection often impossible. Much of what is captured here reflects the judgment of practitioners working under extraordinary pressure, and that context must be acknowledged. And also, it's worth to mention that 3 critical areas, I think, remain under-researched. The first, the economics of wartime resilience. What protection and standardization strategies are most cost-effective at scale? The second is the long-term dynamics of cumulative infrastructure degradation under repeated attack. Existing engineering frameworks model individual failure events, not the trajectory of a system destroyed and rebuilt over months and years. And the last is the human capital dimension. The engineers and operators who maintained system functionality under 4 years of sustained attack represent an institutional knowledge base that not yet been systematically documented. Ukraine's experience is not only Ukraine's lesson, it is a stress test for energy system design that every country planning for energy security under geopolitical pressure needs to engage with seriously. And the core conclusion here is that energy resilience is not a property of any single asset. It is a portfolio of capabilities that must function simultaneously. Distributed and flexible generation, robust and repairable grids, standardized recovery logistics, layered protection, cross-sector urban planning, disciplined communication, demand-side adaptability, and proper regulation. So we can switch here to the next slide. Thank you. Ukraine continues to build that portfolio under active attack. And this playbook is a structured account of what 4 years and that effort has required, and maybe what it demands in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olena. My colleagues will share also the link to the publication to the chat, but let me suggest we should move to the comments and recommendations from our international colleagues who also are working a lot on the energy resilience topic. And I'm happy to pass the floor to our International Energy Agency friends and colleagues, Talia Vatman, Caspian and Black Sea Program Manager, and Jacques Varichet, Energy Analyst, Power System Transformation, on how do Ukraine's lessons fit into global energy security trends. And also, if you have any additional comments, please feel free to share. Over to you, colleagues.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you can hear us okay. We are always so pleased to be invited to DiXi Group events and grateful for our ongoing partnership. From the IEA's perspective, energy security, really our founding principle is back and resilience is being tested. And we are seeing this on a daily basis. We've been seeing it for the last 4 years, but it's even more evident given the events of the last few weeks. It's back on top of the political agenda, and it's not just in Europe. And with that, resilience has really become the word of the moment, but it's really kind of become a buzzword. Everybody is mentioning it, but when it's being put to the test, Even advanced economies are struggling. On January 3rd this year, we saw an arson attack on a single distribution substation in Berlin, which left thousands of households without electricity for days. This was a single point of failure. This was a civilian attack on a major European capital. And the lesson is uncomfortable. Places that we assumed were very safe are much more exposed than we previously thought. From the IEA perspective, resilience of energy systems is their capacity to prepare for disruptions, their ability to withstand shocks while maintaining operations, and the ability to rapidly restore service when disruptions occurs. That's really that definition. But resilience is much more than a technical standard or regulation. It's really a mindset. It's a culture of preparedness, of stress testing, of behavioral readiness at all levels of society, from system operators to individual households. And this is the context in which this report, this great report by DiXi Group that we've managed to skim very quickly this morning, and our own analysis in our report, Energy System Resilience, Lessons Learned from Ukraine, matter. Ukraine has not just survived an energy crisis over the last 4 years of war and the large-scale attacks that we've seen Russia carrying out on energy infrastructure, but it has actually generated a comprehensive real-world evidence base that's really based on energy system resilience. And we're very happy to share 3 lessons from our report that stand out as universally applicable. So over to Jacques.
So the first lesson would be very similar to what DiXi has emphasized, that decentralization is a security strategy. Ukraine started very early on already, after the first attacks in the autumn of 2022, to implement or to move towards a decentralized system. And the numbers have spoken for themselves. Centralized generation in assets in Ukraine have been suffering damage. Over half of them have been attacked repeatedly and had to be rebuilt or adapted, while distributed generation were only marginally affected. Below 10% of the distributed resources have been affected. Smaller and dispersed assets are harder to target, and when they are damaged, they are faster to restore. The Ukraine government itself also confirmed publicly that the distributed resources strategy is already making a difference on the ground. And this lesson actually travels way beyond systems which are under military attack. It applies to extreme weather, wildfire, cyber attacks. The logic is the same everywhere. Concentration creates vulnerability and distribution creates resilience. So a system built around a small number of large nodes, like the legacy system of Ukraine, was a system which was possible to be brought down by a small number of targeted attacks or strikes. On the opposite, a diverse portfolio of distributed assets can be designed to maintain the essential services much longer.
So a second lesson is really about designing for resilience. Resilience must be planned before a crisis, not improvised during one. And we can put it very simply: design for resilience and retrofit when necessary. Ukraine has shown extraordinary adaptability under great duress. But after 4 years of war, we really know well that adapting under fire is costly, it's slow, and it's exhausting. Other countries have something Ukraine has not had since February of 2022. They have time. They have the opportunity to integrate resilience into the design phase of grid infrastructure, of regulatory frameworks, and of emergency protocols. And that time makes things vastly cheaper than having to retrofit an entire system after the fact. But this also requires a very different mindset, a whole new mindset for both policymakers and regulators, and a really dedicated conversation with the energy system operators. Investment in resilience is expensive, but it needs to be seen as insurance. And we know that insurance is actually quite cheap, and it is always cheaper than the cost of the damage you suffer if you didn't have that insurance. Unfortunately, investments in redundancy do not prevent blackouts. There are 2 fundamental types of severe disruptions. We, of course, have these extreme events: storms, attacks, fires, and cascading failures. And none of these are included in the usual security analysis. Policymakers, first and foremost, are concerned about the affordability of resilience measures. But a risk-averse policy does not mean a more expensive policy. It means being very explicit about what you are accepting if you choose the cheaper option.
The third lesson we want to emphasize concerns cross-border cooperation and the importance of establishing cooperation mechanisms before they are needed. High-impact events like large storms or attacks like we see in Ukraine, they exceed the capacity of a single country to respond. So pre-existing agreements can make a difference between a rapid response and months of delay. In December 2024, the cable between Estonia and Finland, Estlink 2, was disrupted, and it's a clear illustration. It took 6 months to repair it, and the main reason was the unavailability of a ship to access the cable. So having emergency protocols in place and solutions established across border before events happen is really important. Another example is the Ukraine emergency synchronization that took place in March 2022 with the continental Europe grid. So it worked in part because the relationship and technical groundwork has been laid in advance. It took over 10 years of preparation. Both sides were ready. It had to be anticipated, but the protocols and all the decisions were already made before, so that they just had to be made at the right time. So frameworks must exist before the crisis, and negotiating it during an emergency is simply too late and will take too much time.
Fundamentally, the threat landscape is changing all across the world, and our assumptions must change with it. In light of recent events, the distinction between lessons relevant to conflict zones and lessons relevant to peaceful economies really needs to be recalibrated. Middle East data centers are under attack. Malicious actors are actively mapping critical infrastructure to identify and exploit weaknesses. Undersea cables are being severed. That Berlin substation arson was not a sophisticated state-level operation. It was an incredibly low-cost attack on civilian infrastructure that caused days of disruption to a major European capital. The barrier between what requires civilian action alone and what requires civilian military cooperation is shifting. And the scope of what energy security institutions, regulators, and operators need to think about and who they need to think about it with is expanding. So resilience as a mindset really means accepting that the threat model is not static and that planning frameworks built for a more stable world really need updating.
So we'll close with what I think is an important strategic observation. There is a deep but underappreciated convergence between the energy transition that we are pursuing for climate and competitiveness reasons and the energy security imperative that we are now confronted. A more electrified, more distributed, and more digitally intelligent energy system is not just a cleaner system, it's also a more resilient system. Ukraine demonstrated this under most extreme conditions that we can imagine. That means that modernizing our systems is no longer driven just solely by aging infrastructure or decarbonization goals. It's also driven by resilience imperatives. Resilience by design is not an add-on to the energy transition. It's one of its strongest justifications. To policymakers or main audience, we recommend to look explicitly at extreme but plausible scenarios when making investment decisions. A system that is designed to perform well under normal conditions, but fails catastrophically under stress is not the cheapest system. It only appears that way until the extreme events happens. Finally, international cooperation and knowledge sharing are themselves strategic assets. The work DiXi Group has been doing with this document, but also in general, to document, analyze, and share Ukraine's experience is not just valuable for Ukraine, it is a contribution to global energy security. And the IEA is committed to do the same. We ensure that the lessons learned and that has been earned at an enormous cost in Ukraine and its people reach all the decision makers so that they need them and they can implement and build resilience before the crisis forces them to do so. So once again, thank you so much to DiXi Group to inviting us to join this event. We are really grateful for continuing the cooperation with you and also to advance this very important conversation together.
Thank Thank you so much, dear Talia and Jacques. Many thanks for all your valuable comments. Let me pass the floor to our next speaker. I see the questions from GIZ in chat, but may I ask them later after we go through all the speakers? And again, if colleagues, you would like to ask your question, just put them into the chat. I will collect them and will not forget. Now, let me pass the floor to Andres Piebalgs, energy expert, European Commissioner for Energy 2004-2010, to discuss, will Ukraine's experience be reflected in the EU energy legislation? Over to you, Andres.
Thank you very much, Olena. I would like to thank, first of all, Olena Lapenko for excellent presentation, and also DiXi Group for the whole report, because it's really addresses some issues that are completely new, at least for me, as a threats, and also goes into detail. So what I would wish, quiet wish, I have two wishes at this stage. One is that perhaps some separate issues, for example, the issue related to the cities, like Kiev example, that is something new for me, what threats and what are the consequences of this warfare that makes. So it is something less known. That is the first wish, that perhaps there are more support that allows report like a split to the different parts, not all of them, but some that are completely new. And second, I would wish that this issue could be presented at the EU Energy Minister Council, because Talia said something extremely important. You need to have mindset for resilience, and mindset is something that comes with the time and not necessarily based on the best experiences. And additionally, whatever you do with resilience, it's additional costs. So I believe that these two factors definitely will decide how fast the experience will be reflected in EU energy legislation. But I hope that EU legislation will adapt fast enough to incorporate these lessons, because I don't see how EU could evade this, but as sooner it happens, as faster it is going. So Ukraine's power and basically the whole energy system has become the most extreme real-world test of energy system resilience in modern history. So it is really unique experience, sad experience, but something that you can't ignore or shrug away. What are more concrete issues that I would like very much that EU legislation takes into account? One is to build resilience into system planning. EU by end of this year will improve the governance regulation of the energy union. Grid package that was presented some time ago goes in the central grid plan and also addressing missing links. But I believe this resilience experience will be reflected also in this governance regulation. The second issue that need more deeper reflection in the EU is a lesson concerning physical infrastructure protection. EU has addressed a lot of attention to cyber threats, but physical infrastructure protection is really new. So it is definitely a lot of lessons learned that could be used already now, but it's important also that it will be reflected in the energy legislation in a way, in separate piece of energy legislation compared with this critical entities resilience directive, because it goes in the way that member countries definitely could do these measures, but as it is common electricity market, it would make more sense really to get a couple of direction on this physical infrastructure protection. Then is also very interesting point for EU. It is importance of equipment availability. If I see the whole challenge of the EU, like critical raw materials, also now made in EU requests coming from industrial Acceleration Act. So you see this direction, but EU, with exception of oil, has never been too strong in building stockpiles. We just talk about value chains. We are missing some parts, and there could be strange situations that we have very strong requirements on the issue on cybersecurity, but then the equipment will not be produced in the EU. So could have very particular situations that you have the clash of different types of legislation, and I believe this issue definitely deserves a lot of attention also in a way that there is a next winter and we are not definitely out of the war situation where Russia could repeat it. So I think this situation requires very fast decision making, and definitely some type of legislation would always help it, especially now with this Industrial Accelerator Act that could cover this part of it. Then the issue that definitely goes beyond under subsidiarity, it is organization. Strong coordination between utilities and government, cooperation with military intelligence services for energy companies, crisis response teams, and emergency procedures. That goes more, I believe, with national member states, but it also could be reflected in this governance legislation. On cybersecurity, EU has advanced a lot, but it is an issue that you are never sleep peacefully. And I would end with the general conclusion that Ukraine's experience should push European Union towards a new paradigm. Your energy policy is no longer only about markets, decarbonization, and prices. It is also about resilience, security, and preparedness. And as the sooner these lessons are reflected in the EU legislation, the more resilient Europe's energy system will be. But as I mentioned, we need definitely mindset to go in this. I'm very happy that Euroelectric is doing fantastic work and really in supporting this. And definitely what presented by Talia and Jacques, our International Energy Agency, is doing fantastic work. But I wish that they continue to push for this, because at the end of the day, you only with mindset change you have also operational change on the ground, and there are hundreds of reasons not to start something even if you are aware of it. So it is additional pressure that is needed. European Commission is working on these issues, but any support that they get in these directions from the stakeholders is always very valuable. Thank you, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, dear Andris, and we are very happy to have you here. Many thanks for all your comments and recommendations. May I pass the floor now to Dmytro Sakharuk, CEO, D-Trading, DTEC, to explain the top 3 biggest challenges for the energy sector after 2022. And I have to say that Dmytro is the one who can speak from the most practical point of view, because DTEC is in the forefront of all the energy resilience of Ukraine. Dmytro, over to you.
Hello. Elena, thank you first of all for invitation. I hope that you all hear me well. It's good?
Yes, we hear you well.
Super. So I will share some slides. Hopefully it will work.
Yes, we see the slides.
Okay. So you see, right?
Yes.
So I would like to speak about the key challenges posed by the war from as a practical point of view as possible. I will try to be short to tell main things, and then we'll be open for the questions. And you see the next slide, right? So it's moving, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens? Just to give you the overview, what we have as a result of the war after 4 years. So we basically have 44% of all installed power generation capacity, which is located on the temporary occupied territories, and the 70% of the thermal power plants or cogeneration plants that are located on the territory of Ukraine are out of order because of Russian attacks during last year, especially that was very heavy attacks. This year, you all knew about this. So as you see, the only 25% of the whole installed capacity that we had before the full-scale invasion is available right now, which is extremely a small portion, and that's why we have all those destructions, blackouts, and problems in Ukraine with power. But this is the reality that's very difficult to kind of to dispute because those are numbers, and that's speaking with famous word. Those are the cards that we have right now in our hands to play. Of course, very big kind of positive part of this was the integration with Europe that happened in March of 2022, and that connection to Europe. And as you see right now, in terms of import, we have 2.4 gigawatts available capacity for export, 650 megawatt. And on the graph, you see how important was that help from European energy system, because in terms of the import volumes in the periods when they are very, very needed. So you see the Q1 2026, for example, exactly because of connection to Europe and ability to import from Europe. We, as Ukraine, added very valuable kilowatt hours, megawatt hours that helped to decrease the pain that Ukrainian customers, Ukrainian households, Ukrainian economy felt after Russian destroyed those power stations, thermal power stations, hydro, and connection points that I mentioned before. So this is the second big important, let's say, piece of the puzzle that we should keep in our mind. And the export income capacity may be increased. Export for sure, because right now we have 650. And why export is important? Because the Ukrainian energy system is very heavy with solar right now, and in March we will see that the situation in Ukrainian energy system should flip from deficit to profit, especially during day hours, and plus add to that hydro generation that we expect will be maximum this year because of the record snow that we had this year, this winter. And the Ukrainian energy system expects a lot of generation coming from hydro stations this spring, basically from second half of March until the, I would say, end of May. And that's important. The export will be needed just to offload necessary energy during the peak hours, day hours, or when the hydro generation will work. And the last big piece, it's about the basically financial layer of the market. It's also kind of, I think, a very big achievement of Ukraine that we managed to preserve Ukrainian energy market during the war. In 2022, in March, April, May, I do remember there were temptations to kind of abolish the market, try to enter into the manual management of the energy system. But thanks to the wise managers at that time of the national regulator, the Minister of Energy, the Cabinet of Ministers, when the market was preserved, and right now the market regulations create a very important kind of conditions under which the all market players operate. The market conditions allow to attract import, allows export, allows invest into the energy system. We all know about the recent development in battery storage development. Still many companies develop renewables, and that's because the market operate. However, there are some as usual, some issues that should be further resolved. The big issue, big pain right now, it's a balancing market. Balancing market is this is the result of accumulated, let's say, situation during the last 4 years. Right now, at 42 billion, it's almost a billion dollars debt on the balancing market, and the 20% that was built during the last year, 2025, begin 2026. Of course, the main factor of that Russian attacks that created a big imbalances in the system, but the structural problem is there. And in order to move forward, in order to expect that somebody will build the maneuvering capacities, for example, or further develop batteries, or will start building gas generation instead of destroyed coal power plants, the balancing market definitely is an issue that should be resolved. And the second one, it's still we have price caps that heavily limit the, let's say, market oriented situation or market driven situation in the system. In many cases, before they were kind of lifted up to 15 hryvnias in January. In many cases, price caps limited the ability for producers to gain enough liquidity, even for the restoration of the Russian attacks. So still we have those price caps in place. And I do hope that when the market coupling law will be adopted, and we expect that should happen very soon. This issue will be addressed, and the European Union or European levels of market caps will be introduced. But I think that from the market point, the financial point of view, speaking about market, those are the big issues that we see. So basically, the balancing market and still the quite strict price caps that are available right now or installed in the market. So that's basically our main 3 points that we see the kind of results of 4 year war. First of all, this is the significant decrease of installed capacity in Ukrainian energy system, especially speaking about big generation. The distributed generation is still not covering everything that was lost. So first thing. The second, a good positive part. This is the integrated. Our energy system is integrated with European, and despite this kind of quite significant destructions, good news that we are stable. We are keeping the smooth operations with European energy system. It helps a lot. And the third one, this is a financial layer that in general the market works. And again, this is good news. And the big thing that two big things that should be resolved. That's the balancing market. That's still a big issue, and the kind of the market European driven or European kind of level of price caps should be introduced in the market. So this is kind of the big picture, big frame as we see it, and. we believe that there is a quite a bright future in Ukrainian energy system. Why? Because this is when the war is over or suspended, terminated, whatever word you would use, we have a time, we have a possibility, and we have conditions to the kind of not just rebuild what was damaged, but create a new energy system. And first of all, with the kind of building new renewables, solar and wind, batteries in scalable kind of format, and of course the gas generation that should substitute destroyed coal generation. And we are quite optimistic. We continue investing into Ukrainian energy system. We continue building. So we continue building our 500 megawatt wind farm in the south of Ukraine. We have several projects already developed close to RTB, 500 megawatt each wind. So in September we launched 200 megawatt battery storage and operated quite successful in the market. It helps a lot for the Ukrainian energy system as of today. So there are some issues, there are some problems, there are some risks, of course, but we believe that despite those severe damages that Russia did, that create also a big opportunity for us to have a new, modern and quite reliable and stable energy system that will serve for the prosperity of Ukraine after the war is over.
Many thanks, dear Dmitro. So we have all speakers already shared their thoughts and comments. Let me move to the Q&A session. We have a few questions in the chat already. If you have other questions, please again publish them to the chat, send them to the chat, or raise your virtual hand. And the first question would be from the GIZ and probably to Dmitro and to Olena Lopenko, but if Talia and Andres would like to add, of course, happy to give the floor. So from the German perspective, there is an increased awareness and interest in the topic, especially exploring the interplay with the EU CRITIS regulation. And the question is actually whether we can elaborate more on the regulatory aspects of resilience in Ukraine. So maybe over to Olena first, and then we'll give a floor to Dmitro and to others if there is interest. Olena.
Thank you. Yeah, the parallel maybe with EU CRITIS regulation is relevant. I see that Ukraine's experience shows that critical infrastructure protection regulation works best when it operates on two levels simultaneously. So the first one is facility level. Operators are responsible for their security passports, backup configurations, and crisis preparedness. And this is aligned with the operator responsibility logic of that regulation, And at the state level, the government just sets the rules, coordinates across the sectors, and I don't know exactly how it works, but maybe prioritize which facilities receive like more air defense coverage, maybe, or more strong, and physical protection. And where Ukraine's experience adds something specific to the EU debate is the wartime dimension. So regulation had to become an operational tool, not just a compliance framework. All that fast track permitting emergency procurement, simplified grid connection procedures were as important as the protection rules themselves. And maybe one more point, the key lesson for this EU debate is that resilience regulation must cover not only protection standards, but maybe also recovery speed. How quickly can a facility be repaired, reconnected to the grid, and restarted after damage? This is like procedural dimension is often missing. seems to me.
Thank you, Lena. Dmitro?
Well, I think that the Ukrainian experience in terms of how to ensure the energy system is resilient is unique. And we are right now getting a lot of requests from the many European big and small and medium-sized utility companies asking us to share experience what we do, how we protect our energy infrastructure, meaning the generation facilities and the grid. I think that before we go to the regulation, it's important to understand what exactly can be done at the level of the government, what can be done at the level of the companies, because sometimes, there is a debate who should, for example, invest into air defense systems to protect the power station, company or the state. From other side, the all companies pay taxes, right, and kind of expect that the army will defend the power station or the grid. From other side, it's impossible to buy Patriots or IRIS-T or NASAMS on the market, not a supermarket, something that is not a potato or tomato that you could buy. But from other side, many people say let them to invest and and create the private air defense system that would defend the facilities. So it's a kind of there is no answer right or wrong. That should be an agreement reached. Who is doing what? First of all, and the second, definitely the private sector is much quicker. It's much more resilient, innovative, flexible, and in terms of how quickly we adjust to the new realities, what we do to defend our facilities. So that's why we even created in our DTech Academy a special course that we will share in some time in the future, where we will basically educate how and what should be done to increase the resilience of the energy system, big and particular parts. So that's a kind of the content should be there. Everybody should understand what should be done and how, and then the duties between state and the private companies or the, let's say, market players should be separated. And then building on that, the special program should be implemented to make sure that there is a result. Because the worst thing that may happen if the regulation is created by somebody who has no clue what should be done, just literally no clue. The theoretical exercise about how to build a concrete shelter about 20 or 30 meters high machinery building in the power station, which is not possible. Or, for example, let's dig underground and we'll hit everything underground. It's not possible. So that's important to understand that the war gives practice. Practice gives knowledge and skill, and this is the exactly that should be taken the foundation for the building any type of regulation, not a office type research that will never be used and never give any results. That's my message to those who will think about doing something, introducing some standards or creating some regulations.
Thanks a lot. So the next, we have like 3 questions. I will try to simplify them, and we'll ask probably everybody to reflect very shortly. So 3 questions from type A, from Lizzie. First is, what do you think legislation we had to approve before 2022 in order to ensure better resilience? Like looking backward, what we could predict and approve before 2022. And the second question is regarding the defense team, which was shooting down the drones near energy infrastructure. So how do local level mobile fire teams deployed and how they were mobilized, distributed, and how their actions are monitored? I think it's partially the answer might be too sensitive, but to what extent would be grateful for comments. And recommendations do you suggest for improving civil-military cooperation for energy infrastructure protection? This is to what, Dmitro, you were saying, who is doing what, especially on this military protection part. So probably like 2 minutes per speaker, and Talia and Andris, I would like to bring you back to the discussion from the perspective, what would you think EU could adopt taken the Ukraine's experience beforehand. Maybe I'll start from Dmytro and then Olena, Talia, and Jerome and Andris. Dmytro, over to you.
Yeah, very quickly. I don't believe that something could be done before the war because nobody believed that there will be the war. And honestly, just I have doubt that somebody would do something. And the same situation, I think, is present in Europe. So nobody believed that there will be, or maybe the war. And I think the lesson should be learned. And a lot of things can be done now, taking into consideration the threat is imminent and it's not theoretical anymore. And taking into consideration that happening in Iran right now, we also believe we believe in the company that the escalation can continue for some time and can be spread to the west from Ukraine. So I would definitely consider doing something that would increase the resilience. The second thing regarding the mobile groups, mobile groups are there, they operate, they work. But we should understand that mobiles can practically intercept only, let's say, slow targets. So basically drones or small drones, Shahids maybe, but not more. So the missiles, the ballistic missiles, or even the more advanced kind of Zircon type of things, it's not possible to intercept using the mobile groups because machine gun is not designed to intercept the missile that is flying 2,000-3,000 kilometers per hour. This is just impossible from physical point of view. That's why they are needed. But if Russians increase, and what they did basically increase the usage of ballistic missiles, the efficiency unfortunately is very low against such targets. And for especially speaking about our big facilities, Shahids are not so kind of unless, let's say, dangerous than a big powerful missiles that are coming with such high speed. And the last one about the civil and military cooperation, I think it's after 4 years, it's much better than we had before the war. And I think that there's one principal question here again: who is doing what? Because there are a lot of discussions. You need to finance, or they should not finance, and so on. So that separation line should be drawn as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we are right now mixing everything together: state functions, private functions, the ability to own and operate something that should not be operated by private companies. So that's unfortunately a bit messy right now, and that should be resolved as quickly as possible to make sure that everybody understands their roles and operate efficiently.
Thanks a lot, Dmytro. And there will be another question to you later. But now over to Olena.
Thank you. Answering the first question about what have been done before 2022, maybe I'll just highlight three most important, from my point of view, lessons that we mentioned in our paper. First one about distributed generation, because Ukraine's pre-war energy system was heavily centralized here, large plants, long corridors, and had distributed generation been deployed earlier at scale, like the system would have had more built-in redundancy from day one. The second lesson here is about standardization. Yeah, the absence of unified specification and prepositioned reserves significantly slowed early recovery efforts, I think. And the third is that minimum stock requirements for fuel. Ukraine had no formalized minimum stock frameworks for oil products before the invasion. And the EU model, which Ukraine is now adopting, would have provided an earlier buffer. So about the second question, I think it's like outside the scope of our research, and I'm not an expert here. And what I can say maybe is that Ukraine's recent policy decision to allow energy operators to develop, how to say, facility-based defense capabilities represents a significant shift, I think, but these units operate under fully military command and control, not independently. It's just what I can say here. And the last question was about civil-military cooperation. All the coordination mechanism between energy operators and regional military administrations should be formalized. It's like not ad hoc crisis calls, but standing structures with clear roles, as already Dmitro mentioned. And the second point here may be joint planning for repair windows, decisions about when and where repair crews can be safely access damaged facilities. It's also required coordination between operators and military commands, and this provides decisive for recovery speed. And maybe one more point that energy operators need timely information about threat levels to make repair decisions also, and military authorities need to understand which facilities are most critical to protect.
Thank you very much, Alana. Talia and Jacques.
Thanks so much. I mean, for us, it really all comes back to designing for resilience and preparing for some much more extreme scenarios, even if they don't still feel very likely. Unfortunately, essentially the space for what is realistic has become a lot wider, certainly in the last few weeks, the last few years, but even starting from, 2001. I mean, these are scenarios that no one really thought about and have begun to impact our society in so many ways. The multi-layered approach, that interaction with the civilian and military is really, really important. And it's incredibly necessary for companies, for regulators, for TSOs to not shy away from conversations and from integration with the military and defense sectors. I'm sure that there's still resistance in certain corners, especially in countries that have not been touched by recent conflict directly. But it's really important. And again, that comes back to prepping for resilience. So going back to that kind of 3-layer protection framework that Ukraine has been implementing, if you think about level 2 protection, that's, you can invest in your hardened physical barriers, but it really helps if you also interlayer that with local air defense, as DTEC has been doing, and now other companies are being able to do in Ukraine. Of course, level 3, one of the most expensive ones, that's, really integrating all of that into the very design stage, undergrounding what's possible, but then again, thinking really specifically about how to work with the defense sector. And I think if you look at the recent attacks on data centers in the Middle East, I think that's going to become clearer, and these conversations are going to start to be had, more and more. I don't know if you want to.
No, I wanted to simply address the previous question about the regulations. Maybe one thing which needs to be reminded is that many regulations in Ukraine didn't exist before the war, before 2022. So many things have been developed bottom up. So the private entities, the communities have developed their solutions, and then eventually they were put into the regulation to formalize them. So for example, now there is this requirement for the oblasts or the regions to develop their own resilience plans that integrate also the protection of their critical infrastructure. So these are things that have been found out during the war. And the lesson for everyone is that, yes, we couldn't have predicted the invasion, but we can now in other places think about what could happen if. So there is now the luxury of time for many places where we can implement in the regulation a number of requirements, and those will be at the national level, but they have to trickle down to the private companies to make sure that they also all are ready for at least some level of resilience. And that is something that everyone can learn from.
Many thanks. Andres.
Well, I basically agree with what Dmitro said. let's see what's the positive side, what has happened. There have been synchronization of electricity systems. That is really something was not exactly done for the preparation of war, but still it was very major step. There have been EU legislation adopted. If I see the hindsight, then all the processes through energy community can be faster, more simpler, and more efficient also in market liberalization. But it would not prepare to the challenge that no one could have expected of the scale, and even the fact would be difficult to get to bring into the mindset. So for me, this mindset issue is still Europe's biggest problem. So you really expect for the better, but prepare for the worst. But that's not so simple. On the military and civil cooperation, it is something that I believe Ukraine has some lessons to give. I believe it's a lot of subsidiarity. For example, in Finland, they practice for many years, but not exactly Finnish model could be used in other parts of the world. I believe defense is defense, and energy comes as an input giver for defense. But still, defense system is prevailing in this type of risks and how they build their operations. The most important that they have input, how the energy system is function, where are the vulnerabilities, but then they take decisions.
Many thanks, dear colleagues. So the next question is from JP Weber, Yulia Metalnikova, and the question is to Mr. Sakharuk regarding priorities in tailoring resilience policies on the level of private energy companies. What to begin with, and this blue ocean of challenges is endless. Dmitro, any comments on that?
Yeah, first of all, to understand this is serious. Don't think that is kind of something that can be done later. This is the most important thing. The second, be as practical as possible. Don't invent something unrealistic. Don't look at some theoretical things. Just implement only those things that deliver results. Third, move fast. Just don't hang on. Just move fast. If you don't move fast, you are late. And the fourth one, right now, this is part of your cost of doing business. This is not kind of it's like obligatory capex, mandatory capex they need to do. And the next thing, it's a lot about people. So people should be trained, people should be exercised as many times as possible. It's not just theoretical training, that should be done in practice. And more you train in practice, better results you have.
Thank you so much. And maybe the next question is also to you, because the question is how the company's participation in energy infrastructure projects. Can you please mute? So how it is planned to ensure the participation of Ukrainian companies in energy infrastructure recovery projects? I understand this is a question more to the government, but maybe I will reformulate it more to you, Dmitro. Actually, how you ensure and how you design actually participation of any service companies or partners or your companies, your people to work with maintaining the grids, especially under the attacks. And what should be taken into account?
There is no problem of we don't have such problem at all. So this is a blue ocean for many companies right now. There is a deficit, huge deficit in the companies that could be involved into the restoration. So it's not a matter of private, state, foreign, Ukrainian. No, the problem is different. Nobody there. You could not find people who could you employ. You could not find contractors who have enough people that can perform the works. You don't have enough facilities where you may produce something needed for the restoration. So it's not about it's choose one or another company. No, it's about find at least somebody that could do something. 90% of work we are doing ourselves, our people are doing. because there is nobody at the market, literally. It's naked.
Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, are there any more questions from the participants?
There was a question, Alena, regarding the any benefits for Ukrainian companies in European markets. I say no. This is a totally competitive-based approach. Ukrainian company acting in Europe at the same basis as any other company.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed that, but thank you very much for your kind answer and also for your attention. And again, one more question. I think that's Arina Kovalenko. Does DTEC have an insider threat mitigation program? Has it been revised since the start of the Russian invasion? We know insiders can really cause harm.
Short answer, yes, but no more details.
That's already important. Thank you. Final chance to ask questions, either through raising hands or through putting your questions to the chat. If not, I will have the final question to our participants. We have discussed so much. May I just ask you to finalize with, let's say, 3 main lessons learned or requests for Ukraine, or lessons learned from Ukraine, which are the most important right now. So what would you like to share with others, which is the most important, or what would you like to request from others for Ukraine? And since the Metro took the most questions, I think we will start from Andris, Talia, Olena, and finish with Metro. Andris, over to you.
Well, I think the first thing it is that international cooperation matters. So I think that is a first lesson that you really need to take into account. So interconnectors, market coupling, that matters a lot for resilience. Second, plan resilience or build resilience in your planning of the system. And the third, I would single out give market opportunities. They will follow market signals. After what happened in Ukraine, I assume market will go more for decentralized generation, for batteries, etc. So try to rely also on private ingenuity and initiative.
Many thanks, dear Andris. Talia and Jacques, over to you.
I mean, for us, fundamentally, it's about putting resilience at the center of energy system planning. And we've seen, from the Ukrainian example, that power systems that are designed for resilience, return to normal operation far faster during extreme events, and they can avoid all these extra costs. And so if you integrate all of that at the planning phase, it's going to reduce your overall costs as compared to retrofitting. And, it's about having those conversations across the entirety of the energy sector and beyond it, and really making sure that you're bringing in the right people, communicating with them. And I will always plug that data here is incredibly important. We've seen the pain that martial law has caused on the data front for all of us working on Ukraine and the energy sector, and really thinking about the importance of having strategic data available to the right people is going to make this process so much easier.
Yeah, I'll just add a layer on cooperation. I think there is a limit to transparency at times of war, but it's very important to remain open and to continue to discuss and to have these agreements made as soon as possible between the different countries, because both the climate crisis and the energy security issues are beyond the capability of any single country actor at the moment, and we all benefit from cooperation and from exchanges.
Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Olena, over to you.
Yeah. I would like to thank all participants for today's discussion and their contribution, because this kind of discussion between practitioners, Dmitry represents them, and theorists are very important. This allows us to immediately test all the theoretical ideas and proposals in real practice. And for me, the three main points here was like standardization of spare parts and equipment, cooperation and communication. All that 3 points.
Thank you so much. And Dmytro, over to you for your 3 points.
The threat is serious. Don't underestimate it. This is serious. This will not disappear. And that will take for some time, for many years, I guess, with us. First. Second, move fast. Move fast. Move fast. This is kind of do it as quickly as possible. It's not about it's a matter of days, not weeks, not months, not decades. It's a matter of days to do something. Third one, everything depends on you. Nobody will come and help you. Everything depends on you. You are in your own hands. Basically, if you want to defend yourself. The help will come, but it will come later. The first help will be only that you could provide to yourself. And the fourth one, I think that's very important. The private sector moves 10 times quicker than state. So in everything that we do, because private owners, they defend their own asset, and that create a different mindset. And I think that there should be no mistake made when the state kind of put in front, but at the end it just blocks the potential that private forces may give into that move.
Many thanks, dear colleagues. I think it was really insightful and really, really important discussion. It's so hard to sum up so many thoughts and so many angles. I will just say that I really would like to highlight the importance of message who is doing what, and really having the division of responsibilities and clear understanding the roles. This is what is the case in Ukraine should be also taken as a lessons learned for other countries. Second is what was said on mindset, that Ukraine also never thought that it will have a full-scale invasion. Never. We didn't think about that. Now we are here, and no one should think that it will never happen with anybody. We should take this seriously. We also talked about costs, but I would agree that sometimes your preparedness might not cost a lot. You can do a lot of stuff and prepare a lot just beforehand, and you will not pay too much cost for that. And we already talked about the regulation a lot. And fourth is the speed. Unfortunately, we have to wake up. I mean, Ukraine is already woke up, but European Union, member states, we all have to wake up, and we all have to take the lessons learned from Ukraine to the all European context in order to be ready to respond not only today, but also in 10 years, in 15 years, and in 50 years if needed. With this, let me say a huge, huge gratitude to our great speakers, to Andris, to Talia, to Jacques, Olena, Dmytro. You really covered so many angles and topics, and all of them were very important. We are super grateful to our participants. We have still over 100 here till the end, and we will share all the materials and presentation on demand, of course, to those who registered. And we are also grateful to our donor, International Renaissance Foundation, and many thanks, of course, to our wonderful translators. Many thanks, dear colleagues. Have a great day, stay resilient, and we'll be happy to see you soon. Bye.